it's great that we met again after years, and I would like to have you introduce yourself to our audience, because it's the first time you meet them, the Chinese audiences, through video, and then to clear some smokes that you're actually the founder of BitTorrent and is actually the founder of CHIA'S.
Oh, yeah. This is so weird that this requires clarification. I didn't know that there was any confusion around this. But yeah, no, I'm Bram Cohen. I created BitTorrent, as in I wrote it. I designed the protocol and everything. I more recently have created Chia. I'm the CEO of the company. And I came up with the whole plan around doing proofs of space and time. I actually invented our proofs of space, and I've been supervising all the development of the whole thing.
How did you progress from BitTorrent to proof of stake and time, the new protocol?
Proof of space and time. There's no staking in Chia. We're not doing that. I've been researching cryptocurrencies for a bit, and I kind of had some ideas about how to go about doing things. In 2017, I left BitTorrent to work on Chia. And at the time, I only had this vague plan of doing proofs of space and time, but didn't actually have a working proof of space or working proof of time, or even a particularly good way of hooking them together. But that was, so I always tell people, don't invent new math here anywhere on your product roadmap. And I'm a total hypocrite on that one. But like the VDFs really hadn't been invented yet at the time. Like we knew in principle they could be done, but there weren't good ones available yet, and now there are. So some of our advisors came up with the VDFs that we're using. Although technically speaking, the actual proof we're using wasn't by one of the advisors, but yeah. Our advisors came up with like a reasonable VDF construction. And actually, I personally came up with the proof of space primitive that we're using. And then in collaboration with advisors, figured out the new consensus algorithm that we're using. That was much of my time last year. So a lot of whiz-bangy math in this whole thing. And then there's a Chia Lisp, which is, I wasn't actually the person who came up with the idea of using Lisp for that, but the high level concepts of how it interacts with the blockchain were largely my idea, and a lot of the techniques that we're using to build smart coins I came up with.
So it's not merely just proof of capacity, right?
Well, so in the academic literature, proof of capacity is not a thing. That's a term that was only really used on Burstcoin, actually. So the term is proof of space. Some other proof of space systems have been made, but they have just technical issues. They just don't really work very well under the hood. So the proof of space that we're using, first off, we're mixing it with proofs of time, with verifiable delay functions, which it turns out is necessary to get grinding under control. And then the actual proof of space itself that we're using has like firm theoretical foundations, like a clear justification for how it works. This was actually the subject of a paper we published in AsiaCrypt a few years ago, which was actually, I believe, held in Hong Kong, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, what we're doing has like strong theoretical foundations and works much better than the other things that people have done.
So was the delay function you mentioned supporting the escrow function?
No. The delay is necessary to have a really functioning consensus algorithm. So when you're using proof of space, you have this problem that people can grind on it, right? That you made it intentionally not really cost much of anything to do your proofs of space. They're very cheap to look up, which is why it doesn't really require very much power.
Right.
And this leads to all manner of grinding attacks, because someone can just rerun history a million times and pick out whichever one worked out best for them and say, we're going with that. So there's all these kind of deep questions of how do you keep people from doing that well? And one of the ways you do that is by you mix in proofs of time. So you make it so that It's kind of like you have proofs of space, and then if they're sufficiently high quality, they get in, but you need the proofs of time in order to finish them. So this leads to a few benefits. One of them being if someone's going to do a long range attack, right? Because they have a fairly large amount of capacity, but less than the amount of space of the network as a whole right now, but more than it had historically, they can just like rerun several years of history at greater work strength and make a heavier chain as a result. So if you mix in proofs of time, they can go ahead and do this still, but they're falling behind the honest chain. It's going to take them, like if they want to redo 10 years of history, they can do this, but it's going to take them 10 real wall clock years in order to be able to pull it off. And meanwhile, they're falling behind the weight of the honest chain. Another benefit of having VDFs is it makes it so that you can, if you use it right, it makes it so people don't know what the consequences of what they're doing now are going to be later. You make it so that challenges that are going to come up in the future are based on the VDF output of a thing that's being done right now. So if you're considering whether to withhold something from the honest network or not, you don't actually know if happenstance it's going to work out well for you if you withhold it. So you might as well just publish your thing and claim your rewards, because even in the unlikely event that you'd be much better off withholding it, you have no way of knowing that in advance. So yes, so having verifiable delay functions thrown in, what we are more poetically calling proofs of time most of the time, is a critical component to the security of the whole thing. And there are these servers called Time Lords out there, which are completing the VDF functions.
Okay, let's move on to the next question about how, since I read it in your business white paper, that it's CHIA'S model is an update, like it has visions to update Bitcoin model in mining and also other aspects, and also it's updating Ethereum to smart contracts. Would you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So what we're doing looks an awful lot like Bitcoin, right? It's just kind of upgrading everything. We, redid the consensus algorithm, we redid on-chain programming, redid the networking. But yeah, I've been mostly talking about a new consensus algorithm. We also do have a new on-chain programming environment, which actually takes the UTXO model from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, in the interests of just reliability and auditability and all that good stuff, makes it so that, and also scalability, makes it so that the only thing that full nodes really keep track of is the current set of coins that are outstanding. What in Bitcoin are called unspent transaction outputs, but mostly people think of them as being coins.
I think sorry for interruption. I think you have this different idea to starting off. Bitcoin had the perception that there's a lot of excessive amount of mining powers being their CPUs, and then they want to use that as the mining. Yeah. But you had a different idea for storage. Or
yeah. It's the proof of space that I've been talking about. Bitcoin uses proof of work, and Chia uses proofs of space. And I've been talking about VDFs and stuff, and that's because it's hard to make proofs of space work. When you're talking about proofs of work, you can cram together pretty much any random bullshit, and as long as there's something cryptographically strong in there somewhere, it's all about the same, and it doesn't really matter, and it all works as proof of work.
Does that make weaker network, or does that create a problem for proof of work?
No. What winds up happening with proof of work when you're trying to use different proof of work algorithms, all you're really doing is changing how difficult it is to build an ASIC for it. So people try and make things that are memory hard. They try and make things that are ASIC resistant. There have been earnest attempts to do this.
It's about the competition of the hard drive.
So proofs of space are very different than that, because even if you do a very good job of ASIC resistance, it's still not that different in some sense. It's still just like you have either you really succeed with commodity computers being the things that people are using for mining, or most likely you've just made it a lot more expensive for people to make custom hardware for it. Even if it's commodity-ish computers, people still buy custom weird rigs. for doing mining because they have just strange requirements. Like they don't need drives or, they're just weird setups. But when you're using proof of work, inevitably what's going to happen is people buy hardware just for the sake of doing the proof of work. Right. And then they burn electricity to do their actual mining. And most of the costs are going into the electricity, and some amount of the costs are going into the amortized costs of the hardware that they're destroying in the process of doing this.
Right.
Excuse me. So proofs of space are actually different from this. In that proof of space, all that's happening is that you have space. Like the actual amount of electricity being burned is very, very small. People have actually taken like very underpowered devices like rock pies and plugged literally 100 terabytes into one rock pie and have like whole rigs full of these things because you don't really have to be burning electricity while you're doing proofs of space. You just need the space to be there. And so it winds up being very different. It's much greener. It's much less wasteful in terms of electricity than proof of work is.
How is it compared to Ethereum's smart contract?
Okay, so there's these two different things here. There's the consensus algorithm, and then there's the on-chain programming environment, right? Yeah. So all that stuff about proof of space and proofs of time and electricity, that's all consensus algorithms. Somewhat orthogonal to that is the on-chain programming environment, right? So there are these two main on-chain programming environments that things have. There's Bitcoin's Bitcoin script, and there's Ethereum's Solidity, right? And I was just talking about how in Bitcoin, it works within the UTXO model. It's a very limited environment in terms of what it can do, like intentionally so that it doesn't do things that are excessively weird and that you can have pretty high confidence that it's doing what it's supposed to. Ethereum takes the opposite tack and has this, well, just really horrible development environment.
You're saying Solidity is not scalable.
Well, sort of. So Solidity has a certain effective transaction rate that really can't be cranked up any higher because it would just be impossible to run a full node if you tried cranking it up any higher. It's already insane, and there's very, very few entities in the world that are capable of making new Ethereum blocks, which is a very, very bad thing. You want this to be decentralized, and it's very hard to do that in Ethereum. And this is just because they cranked up the numbers as much as they could. So effectively, as a result of this, they can only really support, like, I'm not sure what the exact amount, like 10 to 20 transactions per second, basically, somewhere in that neighborhood. And a lot of why it's so limited in transaction rate, despite having really cranked up the numbers, is because of just bad engineering. The constant factors involved in running the whole thing are kind of dubious. When people talk, so at Chia, for Chia Lisp transactions, we have effectively around 20 transactions per second, like 20 very real transactions with 2 inputs and 2 outputs for each one. And you can still run it, you can still run a full node on a desktop without any difficulty at all. And that's that's a big contrast to Ethereum, where they're not orders of magnitude off in transaction rate, but definitely we're getting a bit more transaction rate requiring vastly lower hardware in order to pull that off. And that's really just because of better engineering. And the main thing that's doing this is because we're still working in the, we're calling it the coin set model. It's basically the same thing as the UTXO model what Bitcoin is doing. So a full node, all it's really keeping track of is is the current set of unspent coins, right? What are the coins that are currently available? And whenever a block happens, all it does is spend some coins and create others. That's the entirety of what they do. This makes it so that the amount of persistent data is much, much smaller. It's much, much easier to reason about what's going on. So you get these little blow-ups potentially of complex state when you're evaluating state transitions of the coins, right? You can have arbitrarily complex smart coin logic, but the computation for it and the memory for it appears in these like little blow-ups that happen as you're evaluating coins. And then they collapse down into, oh, well, here are the new coins. And then you just have new coins. So this makes it so the amount of persistent memory that it needs to keep and the complexity of that state is very, very minimal. And it also means when you're like syncing the blockchain, you can do it completely in parallel. Like each block can be evaluated individually, and it says yes or no, and just remembers what coins were destroyed and created, and then it just kind of linearly runs through the whole entire thing. It's not like in the Ethereum virtual machine where you kind of need to pull in the entirety of all state and try and figure out what's going on when you're trying to sync. So this is, in fact, a much more scalable approach, not by multiple orders of magnitude, maybe by one order of magnitude, but still a better way of doing things from a scaling standpoint. But where it really has a huge advantage is just as a programming environment, that your ability to audit what's going on and have confidence that you're not going to accidentally brick all your funds and things like that are much, much greater. In addition, also everything interoperates. It's like, you know, in Unix, everything is a file. In Chia, everything is a coin. So they all interoperate with each other. And we have other nice things in there, like everything that happens in a block happens simultaneously in Chia, which it turns out provides some quite good, not, you know, not the end all be all, but some quite good defenses against miner extracted value. The ability of miners to exploit the system is substantially reduced as a result of all the transactions that happen in a block happening simultaneously with each other.
Okay, I want to talk about the grand business vision of Chia.
Yeah.
In a business paper, it says that
Yeah.
the idea is to build a global market so that you can put all the instruments together into one global market, the debt, cash, and stock. And how far away are we from that? And what do you think is the Chia's advantages in competing?
Okay, well, first off, first thing to happen is that we need to start transactions. So that's starting tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's happening very soon.
Launch.
Yes, yeah. We have prototypes of a whole bunch of very advanced functionality of rate limited wallets and colored coins and distributed identities and a bunch of other things. We need to update those a bit because we made some last minute changes to how the CHIA'S virtual machine works, just in the interest of polish. So we need to update some of our prototypes based on that. And we're going to be, you know, building out a developer community of people who know CHIA'S and can write things for it and standards for how things in it work. So you can go to CHIA'S.com and that has information about CHIA'S. It's some parts of it need updating, some parts of it need expanding. But all this stuff is there already. As soon as transactions start, in principle, all that needs to happen is for layer 2 stuff to be implemented. There's no further work on the underlying substrate of Chia that needs to be done. Okay,
so, and then this vision is involved with the enterprise world as well. First off, it might be like Chia network might be adopted by, like, say, banks or institutions for remittance. And also for mining, you were talking about enterprise world has a lot of storage space.
Yeah. So again, that's two different things, right? There's consensus and then there's on-chain, right? So from a consensus standpoint, there's lots and lots of enterprises that have over-provisioned storage space for various and sundry reasons. And they can start farming Chia and make, you know, money off of doing that. And they should. That helps secure the network, right? And it's using resources that are already kind of going to waste because they're over-provisioned already. So I think once we have real coin price, which is going to happen real soon now, right? So we don't have a real coin price because there's no transactions,
Right.
so there's no market. So we don't really know how much Chia costs. But most likely pretty soon after tomorrow when transactions start, we'll get listed on some exchanges and there will be a real coin price. Excuse me. Yeah, there will be a real coin price. And once that happens, I think a lot of businesses are going to find it that have all this over-provisioned storage are going to find it very compelling to start farming on that over-provisioned storage. So the amount of net space in Chia is going to continue to explode. We have this ridiculous graph of the amount of net space in Chia. A few days ago, we crossed 1 exabyte. We're now at like 1.6 exabytes just a few days later. It's completely nuts. This is going to keep happening for a while. The net space is going to keep exploding for some time.
That's great. Then like the level of decentralization in compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, I heard that it's
oh yeah, it's
right now.
It's ridiculously better. Like in Bitcoin, a handful of large pools could 51% attack the whole thing. They don't because it would undermine the whole system, but they most definitely could. Where in Chia, it's not like that. Like it's very widely diffuse across the whole thing. And we're working on getting our pool protocol out. That's like one of our top priority, or the top priority thing right now, which I think should help with that right more. There's one very sketchy pool right now, which is not using a real polling protocol. So it's really dodgy as hell. And so we're working on getting a real polling protocol out.
Is this level of decentralization sustainable? You have 120K full node counts right now.
Yeah, I think the full node count is going to continue to go up, and the power law distribution of how much space on the network all the actors have is going to continue to be about the same in the future. It will continue to be an extremely decentralized system. If you compare it to Bitcoin, we're already much better in terms of the number of actors that would have to collude in order to attack the system. We already have more full nodes than Bitcoin does. We who knows how we're doing in terms of market cap? I have no clue on that right now.
There was a question on that from the Chinese.
I assume our market cap is going to be well below Bitcoin's day one, but I have no control over this. The price is going to do whatever the price is going to do. But we're way behind Bitcoin day one is in terms of having integrations with existing things, in terms of having like hardware wallet support and being listed on exchanges and having stable coins on us and having services being built on it. We're behind on that. And we're also behind Ethereum in terms of smart coin functionality. So we're going to be working on getting ahead on those as well after launch.
Okay, so the entering the enterprise world, getting enterprise clients has nothing to do with the level of decentralization getting.
Well, I mean, Bitcoin is already used in a lot of places, despite having nowhere near as good of decentralization as you would like, right? But I think when we get used by like banks and things, they're like, my goal here is to foster real commerce, right? Because being money is the thing that cryptocurrencies are really good at. So there, the low-hanging fruit are things like remittances and international money transfers, things that the traditional banking system is really bad at doing, like ridiculously bad at doing. And getting, the equivalents of like local Bitcoins and Paxful, getting those kinds of things going, right? But a lot of the reticence for financial institutions, or even, big companies that do financial transactions, which is all of them, is using Bitcoin feels like just carrying around suitcases full of $100 bills, right? There's very little controls on what you're doing. And Ethereum is barely used as money at all. Like you can transfer Ethereum, but like, I don't even know if there are stable coins on Ethereum. It's like, it's not, that's not its worldview. And if you do transactions using the traditional banking system, it's providing some security measures for you. It's doing it in a way that you don't have control over, and they're not giving you any transparency into what's going on, but they are doing it. On Chia, it's totally possible to build all these same types of systems in ways where the end user, the people using the thing, have full control over exactly what it's doing, and it's completely transparent to them exactly what it is.
So, and you mentioned that you would have no control over the market value.
Well, I mean, definitely for, especially the conversion between like dollars or yuan or whatever it is, like we don't control how much people are paying for Chia. The market's going to settle on something. We're sitting on our own holdings right now. Like Chia, the company, has a pre-farm, but we're not selling it. We're just sitting on it, and we're going to keep doing that for quite a while.
Okay. Another question, the last question from the Chinese community.
Yeah.
They would like to know if the team has any thoughts on expanding the farmer developer community operation, and what's your plan to promote Chia and expand the consensus marketing plans?
Well, so far we've been kind of viral in our marketing. It's been working pretty well so far. We plan on continuing to do community support, and we're hiring more for that. We're gonna get some boots on the ground in China. We're going to get some boots on the ground in the rest of the world. We're going to keep providing support for the farming community. We're going to roll out a pooling protocol and help develop the pool ecosystem. That's our top priority right this minute. That's the thing that's really on fire. We're going to keep improving our client software. We're going to make farming easier and more user-friendly for people to do. And we're going to help train the community so the community can build all of these things as well. We're going to be doing all these things. We're going to be doing a bunch of hiring and a whole bunch of like trying to build out everything. It's going completely bananas right now, faster than we expected. And so we're trying to keep up.
Great news. Do you have something to say about tomorrow's launch?
Fingers crossed it's going to go really smoothly. Right now, it's on a timer. So we'll be doing, we'll be on a video thing while it's happening, but we don't actually have to do anything for it. We're just going to be sitting there. We're going to be watching it go like everybody else is. So if we really screwed something up, it's going to be a total crisis. If we didn't, and hopefully that's the case, then we're just going to be watching it like everybody else does. So when we did our initial launch, that went really smoothly. We were just sitting there. Like we'd done like sufficient testing with rolling everything out on testnet and being experienced at that went smoothly. Hopefully tomorrow it goes smoothly as well. And truth be known, it's already on a timer. Our big launch of the software to support it already happened, but it is good if everybody upgrades to the very latest version before the launch tomorrow. But yeah, in principle, we don't have to do anything. Just let the software keep running. So
that sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? Is there anything else important that I missed?
Yeah, so there's weird stuff going on in China right now. It appears to be that some people put on a conference basically claiming to be the source of Chia and collecting money for a presale that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Let's clarify that. Please clarify that. I did not read about it. Can you tell the source, who and where?
There's I mean, I have some links I could dig up of.
Well, let's put it in an article. Yeah.
No. Chia, to clarify, we have not done a pre-sale of Chia. That's not a thing that we're doing. And we don't have any official spokespeople in China. There are community members in China who we've spoken to, but there's nobody official there.
Okay. Okay. I think this is the interview then.
Okay.
Cool.